Hey Russell, this is Yashasvi from Education 2.0 Conference. Very congratulations for getting recognized on our platform.
Hey Yesh, good evening. It's great to catch up with you again. I know it's been a bit, but thank you for the award. Thank you for the
Right.
recognition. It's definitely a very important validation for me.
Great. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Can you please introduce yourself and the organization you are representing today?
Sure. Yes. I mean, Russell Ramesh. I'm an EdTech executive. This is my second award from Education 2.0. So I'm extremely grateful to be in this position. I'm involved with three early stage edtech companies. So there's Triple Ten. It's a leading career transformation company
Right.
where we create upskilling and reskilling products. Where I'm a fractional CEO and an advisor for their North American entity. Cyrix Digital is the other company. It's an edtech services provider
Okay.
where we create digital learning and L&D, learning and development products for a diverse global clientele.
Right.
And then there's Lens of Sport. It's a pioneering sports edtech startup based in Silicon Valley,
Okay.
where we're working with tier one business schools like UCLA Anderson, UC Berkeley, and the like. And I'm on the board of these companies.
I see. That's really good to know that. Other than that, like, how do you think this industry, the education industry, is transforming lives at a global scale?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question, Yash. I mean I've got two words for you. Okay,
Right.
generative AI.
Okay.
Um, Learning instruments and edtech tools that are powered by generative AI um, is going to redefine and transform this sector
Right.
for the better, I should say, in the near term, midterm, and even long term.
Right.
Mm, I have more of a Pollyannish take on this topic, on this subject, compared to a lot of my uh, peers, I should say, right? And I'm going to start off with a more philosophical rationale
Right.
um, to explain this case. I mean, Yash, you know who Alexander the Great's um, personal tutor was for, I think, the best part of his childhood, about 14, 15 years, right? From the age of two till he was a teen, 15, 16 years, it was Aristotle,
Okay.
right? So I read this somewhere recently, and I became green with envy, right? Immensely jealous,
I
to
see.
be honest. I mean, I believe I or even you or anybody would have reveled in Aristotle's tutelage, right? He was one of the greatest philosophers
Right.
of all time, and we are talking about 300, maybe 325 BC, right? So that's a very long time ago,
Right.
right? I mean, um, and through the miracle of a printed page, right, I can at least read what Aristotle had inscribed all those years back, right, eons back,
Right.
without an intermediary. And maybe if there is a good history or a philosophy professor, they can add to that. But
Right.
at least I can go directly to the source content, right? And that is, of course, the foundation, Aristotle's teachings, upon which our Western civilization has been built, right? Be it your
Right.
democratic values or core tenets of our constitution. But my biggest issue is we cannot ask Aristotle a question, right? I mean, I can ask, but we won't get an answer, right? I mean, my
Right.
hope is that in this decade, we can fashion a mainstream educational tool of a new kind, right? And interactive, immersive kind with the assistance of ChatGPT 4 or Google Bard or IBM Watson or
Right.
similar generative AI tool sets, right? So we are still living I'd say, in the wake of the last revolution, at least in edtech in this sector, which
Right.
was learning powered by data-driven products, right? And it completely transformed the sector. And I'd say most of our products are still heavily reliant upon the data, and at
Right.
least the data, and the data, I think, for the most part, it's performance data and to a certain degree participation data, which are open source. You can actually fetch these these data sets from iPads and other databases, right? But we're now entering, I'd say, another revolution of free energy, right? It's free intellectual energy that is powered and driven by data.
Right.
It's still crude, and it's getting refined, I'd say, with every passing week and month. But in our lifetime, it should get really, extremely finessed, right? And my objective is that someday, when the next Aristotle or the 21st century Socrates or Plato comes along, we can capture the underlying worldview of these great scholars in a system, right? And
Right.
someday in the near future, a student will be able to not just read the words that Aristotle or Plato wrote, but also pose intellectual questions and perhaps get an answer. Right? I
Right.
mean, it's as long as generative AI comes in handy as a tool to amplify the inherent capacities of a learner,
Right.
it's all kosher for me, right? Or to amplify a slightly different innate ability of a student, of a learner. I mean, the ability of a certain part of intelligence, right? I mean, right now in edtech, at least, we're focusing on the mechanical component of intelligence,
Right.
wherein one of these tools can free up a student from the many drudgeries of his or her learning process
Right.
and allow for students or any kind of learners, right, or professionals to be more efficient, right? I mean, which is to work at the conceptual level, at the creative level, or just facilitate more quality interaction time, I'd say, between the learner and the instructor or the tutor, right? So we are developing such AI-driven tools using machine learning and language learning models, LLMs, and
Right.
NLP, yeah, natural language processing models, in conjunction with adaptive learning content. But so is every other leading edtech company, which I believe is a great thing, right? So for
Right.
example, the AI-powered conversational learning assistants that help learners simplify and understand the coding process,
Right.
which is complex in itself. I mean, in essence, what these learning assistants would do is it's a four-step process to help students write, explain, debug, and refactor the code in a seamless manner, right? I mean, or an interactive learn buddy that will prompt steps, interim steps, I should say, to aid in solving a complex math problem for middle and high school students, right?
Right.
Or an philosophy or an undergrad psych major. These tools would help synthesize concepts by expeditiously landing on pertinent references, especially at the conceptual level or the subconceptual level, right? From massive research databases and
Right.
scholarly repositories, right? Or for a complex subject matter such as allied health or health professions, for example, these AI-powered tools will help learners in summarizing intricate concepts in simple, intelligible terms, and I'd say instantaneously shortlist several instructional videos that are
Right.
curated on the fly, right? I mean, and to exemplify the concepts at hand. Excuse me. So the list of such edtech tools that are in the works, I'd say, is endless, right? And my hope again is that not too many generations of students will pass through
Right.
before this kind of a seismic shift happens. And I suppose it'll happen in the next 10 years. It could very well happen within 5 years, right? But I'm
Right.
confident that the proliferation of such next gen learning instruments into mainstream education is definitely in the offing, right? Which means
Right.
every major digital learning program or edtech product in the K through 12 realm or post-secondary or even vocational or skill-based learning, right, will be bolstered by generative AI. And it will permeate across the board and change for good, I hope,
Right.
in all honesty, that it'll change for good our educational processes as a whole, right? And this industry-wide paradigm shift will likely happen by 2025 or 2026, I'd
Right.
say, in a couple of years in this part of the world. And
Right.
my hope is that it should manifest globally and at scale by the latter half of this decade,
Right.
the latter 2020s. I mean, I know it's a long drawn out answer, but I hope it addresses your question.
Definitely, definitely. It's, as we mentioned, yes, AI is really, like if we talk about the last year, the difference, if we talk about, there were many new things, even, that come up into AI part. And as you mentioned, yes, this is really important, even in terms of educational thing. Like if we talk about the education sector, it could help the students in a really different way. So yes,
Hmm.
like if we talk about the upcoming 5 years or maybe upcoming 10 years, definitely
Hmm.
like it is going to affect. And what I consider is the time is getting, like it is coming really close. Like it could be
Hmm.
even in the upcoming 2 years, it could be even in the upcoming 5 years, the work that we are,
Hmm.
that it will take around 10 years. So I guess that is
Hmm.
really good to know, like even the students should get more creativity related to that. So that's
Hmm.
really great to hear from you. Right.
Hmm. Thank you.
That's really good to know. Other than that, like if we talk about the conference and the, the recognition, like how did it feels to receive like recognition for your accomplishments there?
Oh, I mean, extremely honored and humbled.
Right.
What can I say, Yash? I mean, I was nominated aside um, Dr. Pam Cotton
Right.
Roberts, Dr. Michelle Scott. I mean,
Michelle Scott,
she's
right.
at Rutgers University, and some of the brightest minds in edtech
Right.
education as a whole, I should say. You don't get these kind of recognitions on a yearly basis, right? I'm honored and thankful to say the least, and I'm accepting this award on behalf of all the incredibly talented edtech specialists that have been my partners in crime, right,
Right.
over the past several years, right? I mean,
Right.
as you know, conceptualizing, designing, and developing an edtech product is not a straightforward task, right? I mean, it's a skills intensive domain,
Right.
education technology as a whole, and you would need personnel from 40, 45, 50 varied skill sets, right, to
Right.
coalesce, collaborate on any product development effort. And it's keeping these um, 5,000 plus concepts in your brain, right? I mean,
Right.
these concepts spanning multiple spheres of knowledge from like academic research, learning science, instructional design, content development, UI, UX, the whole technology piece, including AI, right?
Right.
And finding a way, right? I mean, a creative way to fit them all together in a cohesive manner, and
Right.
finding different ways to get to that desired state, right? And every hour you discover something new. I mean, that's a brand new problem or an opportunity to fit these things together a little differently, right? I mean, there are, you know this. I mean, there are certain things that you cannot make HTML5 or JavaScript or Python or even AI or ML
Right.
do, right? There are certain limitations with content. There are standards that need to be conformed to, certain things that just cannot be achieved from a pedagogic standpoint, from a UI, UX, visual design standpoint. And it's that process, right, where you continually finesse these ideas, right? I mean, evaluating the trade-offs,
Agree.
obviously. That is the strength of the PDLC, the EdTech PDLC, product development lifecycle, which according to me is a key differentiator. So it's all about collective effort and teamwork and getting together or doing things as a committee.
Right.
That's how you thrive in
Right.
edtech, right? And I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Dev Ganesan, who was my former boss at Aptara
Yeah,
for many years. He's now the CEO at Path Factory,
I
and
see.
also Mr. Peter Cohen. Peter Cohen is an edtech pioneer. Peter was the CEO of several leading educational brands that I
Okay.
partnered with for the
I
past several years, from Sylvan Learning to Pearson to McGraw Hill. I've known them for
some
17, I
big
mean,
names.
18 years. Yeah, for now. And they've been my mentors for life. And I'm extremely thankful. I reach out to them time and again,
Right.
every now and then, I should say, for feedback and counsel. And I always come out of those sessions as a much better, a much brighter person, I should say. So thank you guys. And I also want to thank them.
Thank you, Ramesh. Yes, that is really good to hear about that. Apart from that, if we talk about the conference, like I'm sure you must have watched the Education 2.0 conference virtually as well, like even this time. So, like, how was it? What are your thoughts?
It's a great conference, yes, and I mentioned this the last time as well. I appreciate you guys for all the hard work, all the hard yards that you've put in to make this happen every year, right? So I've attended many education or edtech conferences over the past, I'd say 10, 12, 15 years.
Right.
And one thought that keeps pondering me is, um, I mean, have you ever thought about what it is to be bright or intelligent, right? I mean, probably you might have,
Right, of course.
because
I think yes, everyone must have thought related how to
yeah,
get more into the intelligent part, intelligent side of you. That is the main thing.
yeah,
Right.
because I mean, you meet your friend or a fellow attendee at such events, right?
Right.
And he's kind of slow, and you think you're relatively smarter, and you wonder what the difference is, right? And I've
Right.
thought about this a little bit myself. And one of the things it seems to me, I mean, a lot of it is to do with your memory. I mean, your capacity to recall and retrieve information just in time, and
Right.
a lot of it is that ability to sort of zoom out, right? Like you're in a crowded city like NYC or LA or Las Vegas, and you look at the whole view, right? I mean, all of the happenings from about the 70th floor down at the city, whilst other people are trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B,
Right.
reading these maps on their phones, right? And you can just see it all out in front of you. You can see the whole thing. You can make connections that seem obvious because you have a holistic viewpoint,
Right.
whilst the rest don't, right? And the key thing here is, if you are going to make connections that are meaningful and innovative, right, to connect
Right.
two experiences together, and you ought to not have the same bag of experiences that everyone else does, or else you're going to make the same connections, right? And then you would not stand out.
Right.
So what you got to do is get varied experiences than the normal course of events, right? And the funny thing about being bright in the society, at least, is that everyone puts you on this proverbial path. I mean, you go to high school, you go to college, you land a job, you get married, you start a family, and that's all great, right? But
Right.
you may want to think about going to Rome or Paris and being an artist or a poet for a couple of years, right? I mean, or invest some time in India at an ashram as a
Right.
yogi or a monk. I'd say it's worth trying, right? I mean, Walt
Right.
Disney took LSD once, right? The banned drug. And that's where the idea for one of his best works, if you ask me, Fantasia, came
Okay.
from, right? In 1940, Fantasia literally revived Mickey Mouse.
Okay.
And it was the first film, if I'm not wrong, that used stereo for sound effects. I mean, now we have Dolby and surround
Right.
sound and all of that, but in those
Right.
days it
Right.
was stereo, right? And it's a true story. And the key takeaway is that these successful people, right? I mean, they all have a variety of experiences, be it life, be it professional, work, and the like, and they could draw upon from these experiences in order to solve a problem or attack a particular mind jam or a dilemma in kind of a unique, ingenious way,
Right.
right? And I guess one of the things that motivates a lot of these people that I've seen, at least, that actually get out and do something in any sector, not just education technology, not just education, right,
Right.
is that we all sort of eat food that other people cook. We
Right.
adorn clothing that other people sew, speak a language that other people have evolved over the years, use someone else's math or science concepts or equations, and we are sort of constantly taking from this colossal pool of
Right.
knowledge and resources. And the most ecstatic thing in the whole world is when you decide it's high time you start putting something back into that pool, right,
Right.
of knowledge, of resources, right? And I believe people that have tasted success from all diverse domains within education, within edtech and beyond, that
Right.
maybe you've met or heard from at these educational conferences, at the Edu 2.0 conferences, would express a similar sort of feeling,
Right.
right? I mean, it's it's the most euphoric attribute, if you ask me, that I've encountered at quality events like the Education 2.0 conference, where you meet great people with diverse experience profiles, right? I mean, long story short, I would highly recommend it, attending conferences, and I would also profess that it has to be ideally in person and on site. I
Right.
don't mean to diss any of these myriad virtual conferences that are out there, but I think the in person experience has a lot more weightage and you
Right.
learn a lot of things vis a vis these virtual events. Um, so, yeah,
That's
great
that.
event, great conference.
Yes, definitely. As you mentioned, like yeah, obviously we want everyone to at least attend the conference so that they could get just grasp the environment. Like like
Hmm.
standing with other like 20 to 200, maybe 50, 70 C-level delegates. Like they have their own certain experience, as you mentioned. Like that is kind of a cool where you are standing there, and now it's your turn to share. So definitely, it is a really different experiences. Definitely not comparing with the virtual ones, but yes, it is a really
Hmm.
different one. And as you said correctly, exactly that. Right. So that is really good to know that. Apart from
Hmm.
that, please, Russell, tell us where we can find more about your organization. Please tag your social media handles in the video.
LinkedIn, I would say, is the best source. I mean, my profile on LinkedIn is fairly up to date, and I'm kind of active on that forum as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, and the LinkedIn messaging app as well. If someone pings me on LinkedIn, I tend to respond
Excellent.
within a day or so. Hmm.
That's really good to know that there. Other than that, thank you so much, Russell, for having me here. It was lovely speaking with you again there. And yes, like I'll be more than happy to see you in our upcoming conference, education conference.
Perfect.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
I
Have a
appreciate it.
lovely day.
You too. You too.
Bye bye.
Cheers. Yeah. Bye bye.